What are these things? They're the cool things that happen between playing beats. These are the things that we air drum along with. Phil Collins in the air tonight. Do 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 do. I need to put the 6 down for this next one. Rush, Tom Sawyer. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Da 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 da. Do 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 da do da do da do da da da. Though it's mine, but not for it. Do 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 da. Right? That's it. Air drumming, all that. Those are fills. They happen between the groove and they create a lot of excitement and they're a lot of fun. Now those Tom Sawyer fills are kind of very complicated fill, and we're going to talk about much simpler things. You don't go skiing for the first time, strap on the skis and just run up to the Black Diamond Run and just see what happens, you know? It can get a little bit complicated, it's a little bit tricky. Maybe there's a tree in the way, possibly an ambulance called, trip to hospital, you know what I'm saying. Fortunately, drumming isn't nearly that dangerous most of the time. So what we want to do here is just establish some basic rules for it. If you already are an experienced drummer, this may seem super simple, but you may get some ideas to help your students with it. If you've never really played fills before, welcome, let's get you going on it. At the end of this video, you're going to know how to do 2 things. 1, you're going to understand why you play drum fills, what their purpose is and what they're for. And second, you're going to be able to play from a groove into a fill and back into a groove. You'll be grooving and filling and having a good time with it. So, let's get into it. Please like, please subscribe to the channel. If you have questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section below. I'd love to chat with you there. So before we get into the actual fill, I just want to talk about why we play them and what the purpose of the fill is. And the main purpose, there are many, but the one that we're just going to talk about now is that it's a transition. You're in the verse of a song, you need to go into the chorus of a song. You are in the chorus of a song, you need to go into the solo. You're in the solo and everything's kind of jamming, you need to bring it back down and go back into the last verse of the song. You're moving from one section to another. Now, whether you play the Tom Sawyer incredibly complicated fill or you play a very simple fill, the role is still basically the same. You are getting from one section of the song to the other in a manner that sort of guides everybody through it. You're guiding the band through it and you're also guiding the listener through it. Sometimes a very simple thing suffices. And oftentimes for me, when I'm playing gigs, that's what I'm doing most of the time. If I'm trying to play music that has never been played before in an outer galactic inner musical exploration sort of fusion zone, and I'm on a country gig, well, I'm kind of blowing it, you know? We just want to get you going on a basic fill so you know how to play the groove, and then the fill, and back into the groove. The first thing we're going to talk about is the actual groove. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to use just your straight rock beat always as our groove. So let's just play that for a second and establish that so we know what's going on with that. Now let's talk about our fill. We're going to start with just an 8th note fill on the snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We're going to play it in a 2-bar cycle. You're going to play 8 8th notes. 1 measure of 8th notes. Then you're going to hit a crash cymbal with the bass drum on beat 1, count through that 2nd measure, and then when you get back to beat 1, you'll continue on the snare drum in that cycle. It's going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. The main thing to remember about this is that when you hit the cymbal, hit the bass drum with it. Don't play the cymbal by itself. 99% of the time when you play a crash cymbal, you're going to want to play a bass drum with it. It just adds a lot of low end underneath the cymbal and makes it sound more full. Here's the crash cymbal with no bass drum. Here's the crash cymbal with the bass drum. Big difference there. Now there's the fill that we just played, but you got to get back to your groove, and we haven't even talked about groove into the fill. We'll get into that in a minute. When you finish that fill and you hit the crash cymbal with the bass drum, that is beat 1 of the groove that you're normally playing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's just that beat 1 is happening on the crash cymbal, not on the hi-hat. So you need to transition your hand back to the hi-hat after doing so. What we're going to do is play an exercise where you hit the crash on 1 and the hi-hat on the and of 1, and just loop that in a 1-bar cycle. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 2, and feel the motion. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So if you only have one cymbal and maybe it's over here, you might practice moving your hand across. There's this motion to here or this motion to here. Do the same thing. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. I'm moving across and 1 and 2 and one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Let's keep building across our beat. After that 1, the and of 1 comes 2. Hands play together, all right? So you're going to play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Last time, and 1 and 2 and one more from over here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And finally from there, play that crash and then go into the full straight 1, 2, 3, 4 rock beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Do that again. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. From over here, one time, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right, so now you know how to go from the fill back into your groove, but now we need to go from the groove into the fill. So if you're playing 8th notes on the hi-hat, you need to bring the right hand over to start playing beat 1 to get that fill. So a nice cycle is just to play 8 8th notes and then 8 8th notes on the snare drum. And you're going from playing them all with the right hand to alternating right-left. So sometimes that's a little weird, especially at these slower tempos. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and bring the right hand over. 1 bring the right hand over. 1 and 1 more time. And 1 and 2 and bring the right hand over. 1 and 4. All right, folks, let's put this thing together. We're going to play 1 bar of the groove into 1 bar of the fill. We're kind of going slow, so hopefully you have enough time just in that 1 bar to adjust. So we're going to eventually turn this into a 4-bar phrase, but for now we're just going to do it as a 1-bar phrase. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and bring it over now and 1 and 2 and 4 and bring it over now and 1 and 2 and 4 and bring it over now and 1 and 2 and 4 and bring it over now and 1 and 2 and 4. If that's a little fast, slow it down. Not a big deal. If you need to loop that for a while to get used to that, because there's new motions. If you're coming from over here, you got to bring that hand all the way over and get back into the groove. Now remember, after you hit that bass drum, that's 1, so the next note is beat 2. So make sure you don't do something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I just reset. So often when you play that crash cymbal, you're thinking, okay, the fill ended, now I'm going to go back to my beat. So you're going to start that with the bass drum, but that's not happening. That's beat 1, it's got to go back to beat 2. So just be aware of that. If you're getting that, great job. Now I don't want to oversimplify things, but honestly, if you can play that beat into that fill and get back, that's essentially all you really need to know. What changes are the beat and the fill, but the concept of bringing a beat to a fill and going back to the beat, that's really how it works. You're not going to necessarily play these things always in just a 1-bar phrase. Most music is played in 4, 8, 12, 16-bar phrases. So now let's put a little bit more space between the fill and the groove. So we're going to play the groove for 3 measures and then the fill for 1 measure, and that's going to make a 4-bar phrase. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1. Now that you know the notes of this fill, we can orchestrate this around the drums. So whenever you have a fill or a certain phrase that you're playing, just remember that you have 8/8 notes, so now we can move these all around the drums. So why don't we play 2 beats on the snare and then 1 beat on the rack tom, 1 beat on the floor tom. We'll crash over here and bring the hand all the way back. And we'll put this in a 4-bar phrase. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 3 and 4 and bring it over now. 3 and 2 and bring it over now. Same number of notes, we're just moving it around. Let's try another one. We're going to go from the snare on beat 1 to the rack on beat 2, back to the snare on beat 3, and then over to the floor tom on beat 4. Again in a 4-bar phrase. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring it over now. Now you can play any of those fills. It's just an exercise to move around the drums. So you could just literally practice playing. That's just good work to get used to moving around the drums. Well, there's a couple variations on a super basic fill, 8th notes, snare drum, and then a couple tom variations. It may seem very simple, but I'll tell you that I will use those kinds of fills absolutely at a faster tempo. Because if you're playing your 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, well, to play 16th notes above that is, then all of a sudden you're there. Often what's needed just to keep the groove going are just to play those 8th notes. So I'm going to give you an example of how I would use that actual fill in a real playing situation at a slow tempo, which you've already seen. And here's an example of a little faster tempo. Not every fill we play is going to be an entire measure long. Sometimes it's just 1 beat long. So let's talk about one fill that's just 1 beat long, 4 16th notes. 4E and 1 is going to be what we're going to play. So let's get a loop of that going. So we're going to just count through the first 3 beats, play 4E and then crash on beat 1 with the bass drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I'm just playing right, left crash to get that to happen. Let's put this fill into a 2-bar cycle. Now what we want to remember is normally if we played the regular beat we're playing, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, the left hand is going to play the snare drum, but it's not going to do that now. We're going to bring the right hand over to play 4E and a crash and then go back to the groove. So just remember, don't hit that with your left hand, bring the right hand over and play the 4E and a crash. Here we go. This is going to be a 2-bar cycle at a moderate tempo. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2. Bring it over now. Now the same thing goes for this. You have 4 notes. You can move those wherever you want to. You could play a fill that goes 4E and a 1. You could go down the toms. You could go snare to floor. You could go what I call the $50 fill, which is right, left, crash. I've got a whole video on the $50 fill. You can go check it out, but it sounds like this. Probably my favorite fill ever. So I think you get the idea that you can now, again, like with everything else, reorchestrate these things around the drum. You can also take the same fill and you can double it. So if you have 4E and a 1, you can take the same fill and you can double it and go twice as long. 3E and a 4E and a 1. So let's do that with just the fill first. So we're going to play 8 16th notes, 3E and a 4E and a crash. Okay, and then we're going to loop this in a cycle and then we'll put it into our 2-bar pattern. It's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3. Now let's put that into a 2-bar phrase. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Bring the right hand over. 1. Here we go. 3, 4. Bring it over. And lastly, to show orchestration of that, let's play 3E and a, so that's going to be the 4 16th notes there. Then we're going to go 4E and a 1. So it's going to be 3E and a 4E and a 1 down the drums. Let's play the fill first. 3E and a 4E and a 1. One more time at that tempo. Ready, go. 3. Let's put that into a 2-bar phrase. Here we go. So that may be easy to you, or that may be a lot of information. Go slow with this stuff. Really understand that you're playing the groove into the fill and back to the groove. Practice those motions. 1 and 2, getting back to the snare, realizing that the crash on 1 is just like the 1 on the hi-hat, it's just here, and you got to get back into that groove. Don't let yourself reset. Don't hit the bass drum on 1 and then the bass drum again on 2 to go back in. Try to get things smooth. Try to orchestrate these things around the drums a little bit and get used to that feel. Try to crash over here, try to crash over there. But if you got through all this stuff, congratulations, because what you know how to do now is you can play a fill. You can transition from one part of the song to the other, and you also understand why you're doing those things. From here, the sky's the limit. Have fun, play some fills. Bow. I don't know why I did that.